Go. It says go. All right, I'll go.
All
Bye.
righty. Good morning. Welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. It is the last
Are we?
Sunday of the
Oh,
month.
come on, camera.
So we are here, and I want
I'm over
to
here.
remind you guys,
Jesus Christ on a
absolutely
bicycle.
no making fun of David's camera.
I'm not in a good mood. All right.
You look like you're packing for a convention, man.
I'm putting stuff up for auction.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, that's just as good.
Yeah. So
Well,
here's the tribute issue from FNSF. Here's the Martian.
hey, at least you're using.
So while we're talking, I am autographing. Oh, come on, camera.
You need a screwdriver, man. You need a helper. You need someone to stand up there and
Duct tape.
If I looked at whatever.
You bend down to autograph.
Okay. Well, let me say good morning to folks. I'm glad you guys.
Anyway, good morning,
here.
everybody. Hi,
And,
Bob. How are you? Did I ever send you back that signed contract, or is it still sitting in my inbox?
It just means that you've, that book we just published. Yeah, that was for that. It's a long story, and we got good morning, David, and good morning, Jim. How soon before you get back on the bicycle, Jim?
I'm almost there. This was a long recovery, but they told me it was going to be a long recovery. The doctor, the doctors were absolutely 100% correct. Everything that they said. They told me this would be incredibly painful. It is. I'm not going to discuss the specifics of it, but it's something that I needed fixed, or it would have eventually killed me. And it's fixed now, but it was incredibly painful, and it's still a little bit painful, but I'm getting there. And so I'm on the timeline they told me I'd be on, and I'm starting to feel better, which is great. So here I am.
Hey, that's all good news. That is all good news.
Yeah, I feel like it is.
Well,
but there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than the guy that does nothing but talk about his surgery. So let's move on.
There's a lot to be grateful for. At least you're not shitting your pants.
That's true. There is that. That's
and worse would be having the press take pictures of you shitting your pants.
Well, there's that. So we're just going to start right out talking about the current administration? Is that what we're saying?
I don't care what. We'll talk about whatever anyone wants to talk about. I'm just.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the press, photographing guys shitting their pants. I'm just like, isn't that our new president?
Well, David,
he is no president of mine. He is the perpetrator with the emphasis on traitor.
Yeah, no shit, right? All right, Bob, what do you want to talk about?
Well, it's a good thing you asked that.
Bob, hold up a copy of Alternate Liberties, because that book is it's a terrific book, and it deserves lots of attention.
And I will hold it up as soon as my copies arrive. But I know that several people have gotten theirs because our book order person, I put the writer.
Am I not being heard?
Huh?
No,
don't you have a copy of the? If we have to hold up copies of books, I'll hold up copies of mine, because I don't have a copy of Alternate Liberties yet.
It's coming.
Yeah, I don't think none of us do. None of us do. But you're kind of faint there, Bob. But I don't know if you can crank your mic up a little bit or not. But no, David, that's what Bob was saying, is that his copies of Alternate Liberties have not arrived yet. And there's a couple people in the process who've gotten theirs, but I don't think any of the three of us online right now have. So I haven't gotten.
I do know I've seen some good reviews of it, so that's a good start. In fact, who was I think it was Fred Eder said he found it very disturbing. Adam Troy Castro's story was very disturbing, but he's glad he read it. Which that's a high compliment. It's like,
I was going to say. I mean, very disturbing. I mean, I'm good with that.
Well, all I know, guys, is that I will give a call.
I don't know. I got another note this morning from another friend who's planning to leave the country. So I think this makes 4 or 5 who are already making plans to move to Belize or Spain or Portugal. One is already down in Mexico. So
no, I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely considering alternatives.
Well, I have.
I don't know that I'm not planning on leaving yet, but
well, I have friends
we're
in
only
Canada.
6 days in, and they start rounding up. Yeah, they start rounding up people like me. I'm gonna get the hell out of here.
I have friends in Canada, but I have heard that the Canadians have now imposed severe restrictions against Americans fleeing. So I think our plan D is would be Ireland or somewhere in Europe. Although, if we could get to New Zealand, so they're going to have a hard time coming after us in New Zealand, and there's no shortage of lamb chops. So
yeah, there's that. I have been to New Zealand. It's a pretty great place.
it's beautiful.
Well, man, it's a long hours on an airplane from California, though. But yeah, it's you know, I mean, I have like somebody said, you know, I'm not leaving. It's my country. Yeah, I feel the same way, and I'm sure there were plenty of people in the middle of the 1920s in Germany who felt the same way about their country, and eventually had to get the hell out. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that, but I have people who depend on me. So
Sean believes that where we are, we're fairly safe. And I hope to God he's right, because I don't want to have to leave behind my books, my movies, my humongous monitor. I don't want to have to.
Well, you know, you ought to be all right. It's fairly cold there and snowy, so you should be all right. I don't think Trump can make it that far. It's snow.
Well, I'm optimistic that his bad administration is so incompetent that it's going to collapse in on itself before the summer. But summer is going to be the worst.
Yeah, and that's you know, I mean, that's kind of my spin on it too. Is that these guys are so incompetent that that maybe it'll all fall apart and we'll get lucky. But I mean, Jesus, imagine, you know, that's the thing you have to worry about. You know, you have to wonder how much damage somebody like Pete Hegseth can do. You know, it's going to have to be sober for a while. But on the other hand, you look at the Third Reich and the people that Hitler appointed. I mean, Hitler was in no way qualified to lead a country, and he was a delusional, insane madman who took power basically to get revenge on everybody he thought had wronged him in his life. And the idiots that he appointed to run the country were completely unqualified, and we're walking right down the same road. You know, and I was saying, how much damage could Hegseth do? Well, the answer is he could do a hell of a lot of damage, and it's absolutely insane that this guy's now in charge of our nuclear arsenal and our military. And you know, I don't know. We're literally looking at officer corps purges. We're looking at the guy in charge of our country threatening to embark on wars of territorial acquisition against our allies. I guess the part that chaps my ass are all the goddamn people on the left who said, "No, now settle down, don't be hysterical. He can't do any of that." And here we are 6 days in, and he's fucking doing it. And these people are all. They don't have the integrity to admit that they were wrong, and that's the part that just I think probably more than anything else. And they claim they're going to fight, but didn't have what it takes to show up and fill in a little circle with a pencil, and now they're telling me they're going to fight. Come on, man. You know, you're not going to fight. You're the good Germans. You're the ones who went along. And, you know, and I'm not saying everybody on the left is like that, obviously not. And, I mean, there's 500,000 people that follow me every day that probably would fight. But, you know, again, there's...
Well, on the other hand, remember, liberals own guns too. And I have a thesis, and I could be wrong because I've been wrong a lot. Every time I say they can't possibly be that stupid, they say challenge accepted. Hold my beer. But
that's where you and I are different, because I always thought they could be that stupid. And,
yeah, well, you have more experience than I do. I mean, I have. I saw Richard Dreyfuss at a convention recently, and he was in pretty poor shape, using crutches and whatever. And he says, "How come you look so good at 81?" And I said, "I never had to work as hard as you did." So I've been taking it easy for the past 60 years.
He's still knocking it out.
He is a marvelous man, and I love him a lot. He is
knocking it out.
He is. I've known him since God, I think I've known him since college.
Yeah.
And he's just one of my favorite people. I don't see him very often, but it's like always old friends, and we talk of old times, and we just have a great time together. So, and he used to hang out with Harlan a lot.
Yeah.
So
I knew that.
Yeah, Harlan was very good at having a lot of famous friends, Robin Williams and Ed Asner and a few others. So me, I just wanted friends who would put up with me for a while. So it's like,
hey, here I am. Hello.
Yeah, here you are. Yeah.
We haven't been on together in a while.
No, we have not. 2 months. 2 months in a row, I was traveling. Couldn't get. So
nowadays, as beat up as we are, if you have a chance to travel, you got to take it. There's no way around it. And but I'm watching the comments scroll down the side. Yeah, the Air Force. I see Mary says the Air Force has taken the teachings of Tuskegee Airmen, female pilots of World War II, out of the curriculum now. Yeah, they did yesterday.
Yeah, and they have also
the Air Force
throughout the government, they're removing all places where LGBT people have been honored. There was a wall of remembrance somewhere. They took down all the pictures, and the post office has sent out some kind of notice about passport applications that are going to be delayed. And fortunately, Elise has hers. So, and we are only 2 hours away from the Canadian border. We could always say we're visiting and catch a plane out of there to wherever, but
the hell out. Yeah. The thing is,
yeah,
is
if
that, again, the part that chaps my ass is all of this was predicted over and over and over again. We warned people over and over and over again, and it still wasn't enough for people to show up and fill in a circle. And
there is some evidence. Yeah, and it hasn't been that the election was rigged and stolen, because it's 7 states. But we don't know that yet. The evidence hasn't been made public enough that we can look at it and say this is compelling evidence. And if we do find evidence that the election was rigged, then what do? We go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah. You're going to go to the people that would have to admit that would be the Trump administration and Trump's Supreme Court and Trump's Congress. And so the thing is that, certainly there could be some evidence of tampering in there. I'd have to see it. I don't want to sound like the MAGAs after Trump lost his election. On the other hand, it sure would be nice to know if there actually was tampering. I noticed that everybody on the right suddenly quiet. Suddenly everybody on the right's got faith in our election system again. That's amazing. But again, that said, I'm furious at people who threw away democracy and put Trump back in office over, their inflexible goddamn principles. And I know those people exist. Those are not a figment of the voting system, because those people are sending me hate mail every day. I've got 1,000 messages from just self-righteous progressives who are telling me, well, whatever, at the genocide, I'm just not at. I'm like, yesterday, Trump re-enabled sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. Now, who the hell do you think they're going to use those on? I grant you that the Biden administration certainly wasn't perfect on this issue in either direction. But I would also say to you that these are two groups of people who absolutely fucking hate each other, and they don't want peace. We're the ones who want peace. They don't want peace.
Well, at least the
And
hostages are being
again,
released, so there's a start. And
well,
there
yeah,
is
at
a
least
peace
that's
plan
happening.
on
And
the
I
there
give
is
you
a
that.
peace plan on the table. So
Yeah. But you know how it is. I mean, David, how many peace plans have you been through? These peace, we get them all to sign a peace plan, and they all look like people that are touching human shit with their bare hands, both sides.
well, let
You know, look
me
on
let
their
me
face. It lasts a month, if that. You know, and again, I don't know what the answer is. It's not what I know is the answer is not simple. The answer is not easy.
let me point something out. I think our first real head-to-head experience with this kind of mindset was the 2015 Worldcon when we had the sad puppies.
Oh yeah.
Who it didn't matter what the evidence was, and it didn't matter
Right.
what the facts were. You and I were villains, and John Scalzi and George R.R. Martin, we were the villains. I was like, dude, all I want to do is just hand out Hugos. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah. Again, yeah.
and
But
and
that's
Lou
the thing. Though, these
Antonelli
people,
and Lou Antonelli wasn't the only one. There
but
was another one who wrote a letter to the committee saying, "Oh my God, you've got to get rid of David Gerrold because of this, that, and the other." And of course,
Okay,
you
that was
remember
David.
Laura, yeah, Laura Domitz.
Okay, that was all right. You got me.
Yeah, all right. No, it was not you. Laura Domitz was
No.
my connection to the committee. She said, "David, stop it. You were thoroughly vetted. We know who you are." And this other person, nobody had
Right.
ever heard of him before. It was just, hate mail. And it was just blind.
But
It was
again,
just blind hatred. And they've had another 10 years to invest themselves in blind hatred. And you don't cure
Right.
blind hatred easily, if at all. And I'm not an
Well, I mean,
expert.
I just
I'm
out
not
in
an expert
Seattle.
on blind hatred because I walk away from it.
Right. But you're absolutely right. I was just out in Seattle at SMOFCon talking to folks. I mean, I was one of the people that they invited out to talk about that particular incident. And you're absolutely correct. This is the mindset of the people that we're dealing with on a larger scale. And this is exactly what I set out. Is that sci-fi is always, it's always been the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the country. It's always, or the rest of the world, or world events, the things that happen in sci-fi. Sci-fi always is the predictor of larger things, and that's exactly the case here, because those people, there was nothing that you could show them. There was no proof that you could offer that they would believe. It's a cult. We believe, that's how it is. And when you ask them what would change your mind, nothing. Well, then there's no point talking to you. There's no point talking to you because you're not operating from any kind of logical framework.
Yeah, I have heard that one before. Is that
right?
There was a conversation between a priest and a scientist, and the scientist said, "What could I present to you that would change your mind?" And the priest said, "Nothing," or the rabid Christian, whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, "Nothing." And they said, "Well, then there's no point in talking to you because you're willing to believe something that's false, and it's so much so that you won't give it up even when you're shown proof of something else." And
Right.
and you're right; they are so invested in their belief system of how things work. Get rid of the immigrants, and the country will be much better, and the price of eggs will be lower. So the price of eggs is already up is 40%, has gone up 40%. So, gosh, you voted for cheaper eggs, and what did you get? Hitler.
You got right. He lowered the cost of eggs. I mean, if you can't buy eggs are a hell of a lot cheaper. Mary, I see your question. I'll answer you in just a second. But like I was saying, and as you had said, this is an indicator for larger things. And you're surrounded by people who believe what they believe, and there's nothing that you can say to them or show them. It does not matter. I mean, I literally right now, I've got people on the left and I've got people on the right that are absolutely convinced that they're correct, even in the face of proof that they're not correct, that they've made a horrible mistake. I mean, I literally am sitting here watching. I'm watching Latinos for Trump right now, which is
oh crap. I'll give you an example.
Outrage! Oh my God, we didn't think he'd come for us. My God, man, he said nothing for 5 years except that he's coming for you. He's coming for you, and you voted for him anyway. I don't know what
there was.
At this point.
I saw a thing yesterday. I blocked the guy. He was going on at length about what a terrible president Joe Biden was. That Joe Biden was incompetent and did this, worst president, and blah, blah. And he's going on at some length. And it's like you could show him the charts. Other people were showing him the charts that the economy was up, this was up, this other, the bad things were down, the good things were up. We had 4 years of prosperity. We rebuilt the economy. And he was, no, you have it wrong. Joe Biden, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I realized there's no point in talking to this guy. He's just going to spew this revisionist history that, we have always been at war with East Asia. So, okay, great. Thank you. Goodbye. Blocked him. It's like,
right. I've got to the point now where, after 20 years of this bullshit online, I have reached a point where I find that I am just I have nothing left for it. And so when it appears on my timeline, people say, well, you don't want to argue. Right. I'm not going to argue with you.
Well, I was looking.
I'm just going to block it. I'm too damn old to keep putting up with this bullshit. You're adults. You should have figured this out by now.
You can see the mess behind me. We were looking, and I can verify. I can say absolutely with certainty, I have no more fucks to give. There aren't any. We looked all over. There are no fucks here to give.
Hey, Mary, I said I would answer Mary O.C. where she said, question for Jim. Am I correct in assuming that our adversaries have the capability to find out if our new Secretary of Defense is drunk or passed out in order to launch an offensive? I at this point, I don't know what the hell our adversaries know now, because the problem is you don't know which part of our government has decided that their loyalty is to our adversaries and not to our country. I literally, someone had asked me online just this morning. They said, well, how likely is the military to follow these illegal and immoral orders? First of all, you got to stop there. First of all, the orders, if Trump decides to use the military against Americans, those orders are legal. Those are not illegal orders. Okay, and the soldier in the trench doesn't get to decide what's legal and what's not legal. That's not how that works. There are certain orders that are obviously against the code, the UCMJ, that sort of thing. But to say, hey, if he decides to send the army to Chicago and declare some form of national emergency, well, guess what, fellas? Those orders are legal. And they're legal so long as the checks and safeties say they're legal. Well, those checks and safeties, those checks and balances are the Supreme Court, which works for Donald Trump, and the U.S. Congress, both houses of the U.S. Congress, which work for Trump. And the answers there are everything you've been warned about for 20 years. I warned you that if you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, whether you liked her or not, that Donald Trump would kick the Supreme Court for the next 20 years. And my mentions were full of angry progressives yelling at me saying, don't try to scare us. Well, I hope you're fucking scared now, but it's too late, because the Supreme Court works for Donald Trump, and they do for the foreseeable future for the rest of your goddamn life. So if you're expecting the court or Congress to say, hey, those orders are illegal, you shouldn't follow those, military, guess what? Ain't gonna happen. And again, Congress, you couldn't vote for Kamala Harris, so you just handed Congress over to Donald Trump. I realize not everybody watching is that.
Well, let me scare you a little more. Let me scare you a little more. The man said, vote for me this time and you'll never have to vote again. He intends, and I'm certain of this, he's going to declare martial law in September of 2026 and suspend the elections. And we will not be able to have free elections anymore, because he will declare martial law. Once he declares martial law, he can suspend the Constitution, and it's over. It's game over, because there's no legal way. There's no legal way to oppose him if we can't have elections.
Right. And again, I don't even know that he has to declare martial law. He owns the whole government. Everybody works for him. And the thing about it is that the people that liberals were all like, oh yeah, we're gonna fight, we're gonna resist. And I mean, John Fetterman's a perfect example. And Fetterman might as well just change his political party. I mean, all these companies and all these people that you were going to fight and we're going to fight and resist, they've all rolled over for him. And this is exactly what happened.
Preemptive surrender. It's like the preemptive surrender is the scariest thing. It's like, here were all of these companies that could have taken a stand and invested their money against him. They knew what was coming and they surrendered preemptively. And I mean, we have it was Germany all over again.
Right. But again, like I said, you know, the problem is that we just don't believe it. As a country, we just don't believe it. We don't believe it. I always think there's one more chance. Well, you know, if Donald Trump, if he gets in and then he picks the Supreme Court, well, we can always expand the Supreme Court. Well, you know what? You're not going to do that. You know, we can always impeach the Supreme Court justice. You know what? You're not going to do that either. It's not going to happen. All right. You're just not going to do it. It's not. It's not. It's all bullshit. But they always think there's a one more chance. One more. We're always going to get one more chance. But you had the chances. You had the opportunity to keep this asshole and his fascist buddies the fuck out of Congress. And just, don't try to scare us. You weren't scared. I don't know what the hell to say at this point. And the part that kills me is for the last 6 days, I've watched the press. I watched Latinos for Trump. I watched progressives. Oh, just horrible. Oh my God. Did you see what Trump's doing? Yeah, he told you he was going to do it. Well, I can't believe it. He's actually implementing Project 2025. He said he wouldn't. It's like 3-card money, and liberals are the people in front of the table. Like, this time I'm going to figure out which card it is. I got it. And every goddamn time, my God, man, I don't know what the hell to say, and I hate sounding like this, but I'm at the point now where
there is a discussion.
There
is a discussion that I'm not going to have here about there are people who are predicting that we will have a revolution and it will be violent and we will have a civil war. I'm not going to go into what I have heard because out of courtesy to Bob and also those people in the black masks who are going to come barging in the door.
No, I don't doubt that there'll be some violence eventually, sooner or later, maybe half-assed. But again, you're talking about a bunch of people that couldn't put in the F dot on a piece of paper with a pencil. And you're telling me that these people are going to take up arms and put their asses on the line?
To be fair, we didn't have a national news media that wasn't owned by the same people who wanted to vilify the Democrats and make the Republicans. I mean, you know, even the LA Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they're all owned by oligarchs. So, you know, if you wanted accurate news, you had to go to the BBC, the Guardian. You know, you couldn't get accurate news from the American news media because that was part of the game plan, was to buy the news media.
And you still can't. Even today, when the news media is staring right down the barrel of being either nationalized or liquidated. I mean, you know, in a dictatorship, they come for, it's always predictable. They come for the teachers first. They come for the press first. They come for the lawyers first. They come for first. Those are the people that go to the fucking wall or go to the camps first. And the press in a nation like this, the press is always one of the first people to be around.
We do have their precedent. They did have detention camps last time around. This time they'll just expand the detention camps.
Right.
They won't call them concentration camps.
They'll call them something. Because again, and it sounds so damn being that guy. Look, I said this morning. I was out shooting pictures with a friend of mine, and so I said this morning was, God damn it, I wanted to spend the rest of my life taking pictures and writing books on photography and science fiction. That's what I wanted to do. And now I'm going to have to do this. And we're going to have to, you know, God damn it. You know, all we had to do was show up. That's all you had to do. And I don't, if you weren't scared by what you were facing this time around, what the hell would scare you? You know, and again, what kills me is that, you know, again, I've heard this for the last 10 years. You know, what would you do? What do you think you'd be doing? You know, I'd be fighting back in the, you know, since 1920s. You'd be doing shit. You'd be doing the same goddamn thing you're doing now. You know, how could this happen? How could these people wind up in power? They wind up in power because we let them. That's what happened. They didn't, you know, they didn't have to steal the goddamn election. I mean, I said what's astounding to me, and again, I said this to my friend this morning. You know, I went down here to vote, and I'm in Matt Gaetz's district. It's deeply red. I mean, a Democrat doesn't have a fucking chance here. There's no way around it. They don't even get 5% of the vote, and no matter how many 17-year-olds Matt Gaetz, screws. Right now, he quit, and they still want him to be. They still want to reelect him. And every church, every Baptist church in town's got a sign out front of Donald Trump and Gates and "Make America Great Again," right? But again, these are the people. These are the very people that are getting screwed right now by this administration. The second day in office, Trump canceled the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Cancel the bill because it's legislation, but he can't withhold the funding for it. Oh my God, there must be 10,000 people in this kind right here in the surrounding counties that I live in that are directly employed by the funding of that bill. They're busy rebuilding the highways. They're building the evacuation zones for hurricanes, and all of that comes to a stop now. And these people all wearing MAGA hats out there with their shovel on the corner with their ass crack showing, and they literally voted to cut their own throat. But again, as I said, when we started this train of thought here was, I'm standing in line at the Baptist church where I have to vote, and buddy, that chaps my ass more than I can ever tell you. And there were, in the line ahead of me, there were probably 50 people in line ahead of me, and maybe half of them were women by themselves, older women by themselves. And as I was standing in the back of that line, I thought to myself, God damn, maybe social media is right. Maybe these women are actually here in this red district without their husbands voting for Kamala Harris. Maybe. And I had that moment of hope. What an idiot, right? They weren't. They were literally in line at a Baptist church voting to get rid of their own fucking right. I don't even know what to say now. And when I talk,
let me give you this. Let me give you this, Opal.
I don't know what to
So
say.
let me get.
Things like, well, the man is the head of the household, and it's not really going to change anything. And
Let me give you this. In 1992, the Soviet Union collapsed, and that revolution was very silent, very quiet.
Yeah.
The people gathered in the streets, and the troops refused to fire on the citizens. And I don't know that we're going to have the same kind of thing here, but if even the Russians, who've been subjected to 70 years of bullshit from the communists, if they could say no more, they stood up. And so I don't know that we'll get that here. I suspect we're much more likely to get violence, but
U.S. military has a long history of firing on its own citizens, and somebody reminded me.
Yeah, they do.
And it's not just that. You have to remember that and again, I don't know, the people that I served with would refuse that order, but the people I served with are all retired now, and we're busy purging the officer corps and the enlisted ranks of people that are not MAGAs, and we put a guy in charge that's perfectly willing to use military force, but nowadays it's not the military of 20 years ago. That military, the professional military of the 1990s and the beginning of the 2000s, that military doesn't exist anymore because that military could not fight two wars in two different countries overseas while maintaining U.S. interests globally. And so we had to turn the National Guard into active duty military, and a lot of those forces, and again, I don't want to disparage people in the National Guard. Some of them are very fine soldiers, but some of them are very much not. And one of them is now the Secretary of Defense. And right here, I literally live I could step out back and throw a rock over top of my neighbor's gun range and land in the back of the National Guard armory. And that local National Guard unit, when they assemble for their weekend drill and I ride my bicycle past their parking lot, half of those trucks in the parking lot have Punisher skulls and 3% stickers on the back of them. So, and those are folks that would answer to the governor and to the president in whatever crisis these assholes gin up. And these are people that already literally are showing flags on the back of their vehicles that they're willing to take up arms against Americans, because that's exactly what the 3%er and the Punisher skull mean. We're willing to kill everybody around us, our neighbors. That's exactly what it means. In my day in the military, if you were flying that kind of stuff on the back of your truck, your ass would be administratively discharged. If you were lucky, you'd get an administrative discharge, because that kind of disloyalty to the United States would not have been tolerated. And we did. We literally threw people out that belonged to the Klan or belonged to these militia groups, that sort of thing. But 20 years of war, we had to compromise, and we had to accept elements that, because of the way the war was fought, which we changed how that military works. So nowadays, when you ask, would the military fire on American citizens, or would they be like the Soviets that refused to fire on their own citizens? I don't know. And I think it's probably situational. I don't know. Some yes and some no. And that's a horrible thing. That's a horrible uncertainty, because we should be certain that our government can't use our military against us. And the most ironic part of this entire thing, most insanely ironic part of this, in charge now are the states' rights fanatics, the Second Amendment nuts that all own guns in case the government decides to send the military to take away their rights. And yet these are the same people, and it's always like this, who just can't wait to use that self-same military to crush all the people, all the American citizens that they don't like.
Well,
This isn't anything new. I mean, this is fucking Ronald Reagan right there. They got Mr. Rights and American Rights, who was notorious as the governor of California for sending troops and cops to kill American citizens. He didn't like that. He didn't like the fact they were protesting, in Berkeley.
Yeah, Reagan said, if there's going to be a bloodbath, then let's get it over with.
Then let's get it over with. That's right. Yep.
So, which is,
yeah, I mean, and that's, and I don't think it didn't begin with that, but it certainly didn't.
It's actually, the statement should have been, how do we avoid a bloodbath? What do they want? What can we give them to settle this thing without violence? And we don't have that mindset anymore.
Right.
As you have pointed out, they own every branch of government, and they're going to use that to make sure that we never have a fair election again. That's why we're going to be headed to violence. And I have said that I still believe Americans are the orneriest, most hard to control, most rebellious people on the planet, simply because we do not have a homogenous demographic, and that the spark is going to happen somewhere, and it will turn into a conflagration. That's my theory. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of stuff, but I suspect that there will come a point when even I don't care how low the price of eggs get, there's going to come a point where people are saying, I can't live like this. And we have seen the willingness of young people to pick up guns and create horror. They'll just go after maybe they'll go after different set of targets this time.
Right. Again, the thing is it never had to come to this. The country, for all its flaws, was specifically designed so that you could change civilization without bloody revolution. This was the whole goddamn point. And yet we're determined for it to come to violence.
Yeah.
And it is. We have become the government and the nation of the lowest common denominator. And it's just, and the worst part about it is it's this this bullshit Hollywood made up version of manliness that we've suddenly decided is the only viable, is the only legitimate ideology of what fucking America is. That you have to be this burly Jim Bro, roided up beard wearing guy with a truck and a fucking gun, and that's the only version of America that we allow, and that's literally the government that we have now. And, it's we started out talking about the Tuskegee Airmen and Black history and the contribution of LGBTQ people to American history, and how we're erasing all of that right now. And the only legitimate history that America is allowed to have is the history of well, allegedly straight white men, and not just straight white men, but a specific type that Hollywood, what Hollywood thinks a fucking SEAL is. All right, and I got news for you. That's not what SEALs are. But I can flip on YouTube right now, and every goddamn podcast, every Joe Rogan interview is some roided up dude with a beard talking about how he was kicking indoors in Afghanistan. I doubt half of those sons of bitches actually ever saw any action. Half of them might not even have been in the goddamn military, but they're all cut out of the same mold. They're the same beard, the same the same steroid pump gym muscles. I got to tell you, man, I was there, and I don't remember any of these guys. Okay, I don't remember a single one of these dudes. And so I'm not sure where all of these heroes came from, but it's a stereotype of what real men look like or something nowadays. And this is literally the illusion that we're laboring under. I mean, I used to laugh when you would see these interviews with the old Nazis, and they talk about the master race, the Aryan ideal, and they'd always show a picture of some buff, wedge-shaped, some guy that looked like Johnny Weissmuller or something, that shape from the muscle man from the 1940s, blonde hair and blue eyes, and I'm like, fucking Hitler was the exact opposite. I mean, have you seen Hermann Göring? None of these people.
Let me share a story with you. You will appreciate this.
Let me finish, David. As I said, how the hell?
We used to have.
How the hell could you look at someone like Adolf Hitler and think Aryan ideal? Well, we're literally
they used to have it.
We're literally looking at it with Trump right now, who seems to think that he weighs 160 pounds, all of it rock hard muscle, with a thick head of blonde hair, blue eyes, and literally. You look at that and you think it's ridiculous. But what's crazy is 70 million Americans look at that.
Well, the Germans used to brag.
That's what
the ideal German was going to be tall like Goebbels and trim like Goering and blonde like Hitler. So,
right. But I mean, the thing is I literally have people. I literally get messages from people who say, "Oh, Donald Trump, he's so handsome and he's so fit. He's the most fit president we have ever had." And I'm like, "Are we looking at the same fucking screen?" How literally look at that, and that's what they see. It's a cult. They
2 and 2 for these people. 2 and 2 make 5, and they, And let me tell you a story which you will appreciate. Now, this goes back to my misguided youth. When I had a lot of friends, I would go out at night to the local gay bar, and I would chat with a lot of people. And the general opinion was you could have a Marine as long as you didn't kiss them. They were great bottoms. And they were talking about the kind of guys you were just talking about, the guys who were so trim and so beautiful that, they look like the Tom of Finland caricatures, but they were bottoms. And that was the joke, is that why do you want one of these men who's a phony? That they were all performance and no nothing. So, the real courage, I will tell you this, the real courage, and I meant more than, the real courage were those you would call a sissy. because it takes a lot of courage to be a sissy in the face of massive disagreement. And you can walk out the front door knowing that people are going to snicker at you because you're a sissy. I will tell you, I will take a battalion of sissies over an army of those red-hatted failures.
Right. I'm curious here, Chardonnay. You said everyone is sounding like an echo chamber. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about David and myself? Or are you talking about the United States of America? What are we talking about here? What's that comment mean?
Was that a question to me?
No, that was a question to somebody in the audience
Okay.
who said that we sound. They said something about everyone is sounding like an echo chamber is what they said, and so I'm curious as to what that means.
They think we're all agreeing with each other. Actually, no, I could disagree. I think I do believe that Americans are going to say, I've had enough of this. We have had that happen in the past. It's just, and this is something I was considering earlier this week, is that right now everybody's saying, well, I still have my house and my car and my this. And so they haven't hurt yet. When enough Americans are hurting enough, badly enough, when they have lost their homes or their families or whatever, when the pain level rises to a certain threshold, that's the moment at which the revolution, whether it's peaceful or violent, that's when the spark is going to happen. Simply because this is a country of people who have gotten used to having their way, having cars and televisions and going to the stores, and the shelves are full of stuff. And when you can go to the stores and not get eggs, that's when people are going to start getting really angry. This was not what was promised. And so when it gets right now, we're just seeing, he's just passing, signing the etc. to make things bad. It isn't until we start to feel the effects personally, all of us, that the revolution against this man becomes inevitable. This is my, and I'm sorry to put this subversive talk on your thing, Bob, but I suspect that we are headed for it because he's created an administration of punishment. That he's not doing anything for any of us. It's all about controlling us. It's not about serving us. And at the point at which that control becomes oppressive, I've seen this happen a few places where people get angry. And right now people are afraid. But after you're tired of being afraid, then you start getting angry. Then you move to rage. When we get to a national rage, who knows? So
the problem with that is it depends on who. When things went. In Germany in the 20s and 30s, things were as my audiences want to point out to me every time I mention it, things were pretty miserable in Germany in those times. Now, whose fault was that? Now, again, this is where lefties show up to tell me how horrible the treaties were and how terrible Germany had it.
They blame the communists and the Jews.
The truth of the matter is, Germany had it for shit in the 1920s and 30s because Germany was at fault. I don't know what the hell that noise is, but Germany was at fault. They were the ones that invaded their neighbors in the First World War, and then they lost that goddamn war, and they had peace imposed on them. And if that peace was burdensome, well, too fucking bad. Don't start wars. Anyway, when I say that, Germany didn't blame France or the United States. They blamed the Jews. They blamed the Gypsies. They blamed
the communists.
People. They blamed the communists. Exactly. And so here, when things go to shit, when you can't get eggs, or they cost $10,000 a fucking egg, or gas is $20 a gallon, or whatever the hell we're looking at, because if he carries through on his threat, and there's no reason why he shouldn't, then in about 6 days, not even that, in about 5 days, we're looking at a trade war. We're looking at 50% tariffs, 50% tariffs on food products and everything else that we get from our closest trading partners, Mexico and Canada. And that includes things like electricity, which people forget. We don't own the juice that comes, most of the juice that comes off of things like the power plant. A lot of that we're buying from Canada. And suddenly we're looking at an embargo on energy and on food and on all of the things that these people claim was so important to them that they just had to vote for Donald Trump. And when their life goes to shit, and again, I'm surrounded by these people. You've been to my house, David. You stayed in my guest room. You know where I live. I'm surrounded
Yeah,
by
but
these
I had to
people.
cross the
They're not
moat
gonna,
and be
they're not
cleared by the guards and
gonna,
show my ID. And say,
they're not going to goddamn blame Canada. Or they're going to blame Canada. They're not going to blame Trump and his policies for this. Just like they never blame the goddamn Republicans, every single time Republicans crash the economy with their unregulated bullshit and their junk bonds, they're going to blame us. And they're going to
yeah,
blame
I admit to be.
and they're going to blame the gay people, and they're going to do what they
I
always do.
I admit to being hopeful that this country will smarten up, but I've been wrong about that too many times.
Yeah,
So
well, see, that's where you're an optimist and I'm not, because somebody said to me the other day, actually yesterday, someone brought up, Bob Heinlein's, quote. Of course, they didn't even know that Heinlein's the guy that tended the thing about it. An armed nation is a peaceful or as a polite.
oh
nation.
yeah, an armed society is a polite
Right.
society.
And I said, well, first of all, even the guy who penned that didn't believe it. Bob Heinlein was far too smart to actually believe that bullshit. And second of all, he didn't have a very high opinion of the average citizen of the United States of America.
Heinlein, and I knew Robert,
Yeah.
and he and Ginny made a point of living as far away from other people as possible. And I
Right.
think that says more. That says more. And my own theory is that Heinlein was, he said an armed society is a polite society, and my response is an armed society is neither polite nor society.
Right, but the thing was, he wrote that what people say, they take that line out of the story. So first of all, the society in that story was a race of born immortal supermen who used every opportunity to fight to the death because they were sick of being alive. And so that quote applied to anybody but the society in that story, and it worked for that society because Bob Heinlein wrote it that way. For God's sake, man, and again, this is what science fiction does. It takes an idea and it explores it to the failure, to the bitter end, to the horrible conclusion at the far end of the goddamn tunnel. If you take that tiny piece out of the story without the rest of the context of the story and try to apply it to civilization, well, you're the very idiot Bob Heinlein was talking about. For Christ's sake, man.
Yeah. I know Sean and I have had some conversations, and he believes that we are in a remote enough area and that Vermont has nothing in it that the Trumpistas are going to want. He believes we're going to be relatively safe if we hunker down and just mind our own business for the next few years. But
Right.
he believes that if violence,
well, you know me, I can't do that.
yeah,
so.
I know, I'm not very good at keeping my mouth shut either.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah, I'm either going to get off down here at the hardware store, or at or someone's going to come to my house. It's one way, and I've had that happen. So,
well, I told Sean.
again,
Sean has said, and this goes back to before this. Sean has said if anybody ever touches his kids, he'll kill them. And I said, no, you won't. Your kids need a dad more than they need a grandpa. I'll kill him. And he says, yeah, but you're not as good with the gun as I am. I says, yeah, I have an extra magazine. I only have to hit him a few times to slow him down. And, and my spread isn't that bad. I can, it's like, all right, I'll miss a couple shots. They'll be moving targets.
Right. But, and I hate that we've reached the phase of this dystopia where we literally have to joke about this sort of thing, and we're not really joking. That's the worst part of it.
I am not joking.
I literally,
somebody threatens my family, that'll be the last thing out of their mouth.
Yeah, and that's the thing, up until this point, if someone threatened your family, you could call the cops, and maybe, not everybody could call the cops, and not every cop would respond, but you had a fairly decent chance, and I've had it happen. I mean, I've been threatened myself. I've sent people to jail, to prison, or threatening me online and threatening my family. And now I don't know that I don't know. I mean, you literally have social media platforms who've all just said to hell with it. We're not gonna, man,
We're
whatever. There's no,
preemptively
I don't know
surrendering.
why we have.
Let me just say this,
Yeah,
and I should probably get this on a T-shirt. Liberals have guns too. We just don't masturbate with them.
and that's exactly right. I mean, you've been to my house, you've been in my office, you've been right in this room that I'm
Yeah.
broadcasting from. There's two gun safes. There's two gun safes about 5 feet out of frame there, and yeah, I spent half of my life. I'm a professionally trained firearms instructor. I mean, I fought in 2 wars. I mean, you want to come and bring us on, but it shouldn't come to that. Americans shouldn't have to solve their problems by shooting at each other. But then again, you know, I saw this online, and Shannon Watts from Mom's Demand, and who's damn good people, and I saw her comment online here the other day that said, you know, this recent shooting where this 17-year-old kid shot, he killed a girl, and killed himself, and then wounded somebody else, a girl, I think, one of his classmates. And Shannon said, you know, the police are still looking for motive. And I know she knows this because she's incredibly smart. And
He was 17. There's your motive. His
your
hormones were out of
motive is,
control.
in America, this is our culture. We solve all of our problems with guns, whatever the hell it is. Somebody doesn't like your politics, guns. Somebody, the girl turns you down for prom, guns. You don't like somebody's religion, guns. Everything, the answer to everything in this culture is gun violence. And Hollywood has never found a goddamn movie where guns didn't solve everything. And I don't want to sound like, I don't want to blame Hollywood or video games or that kind of shit. It's more than that. Those things are a reflection of our society. I'll give you an example. I used to write a series called Bang Bang Crazy, and people always ask me where that name came from. Well, it came from a movie with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, called The Rundown, and Sean Thomas Scott is him, and Sean Thomas Scott, and throughout the entire movie, it's an incredibly violent movie. It's a funny movie, but it's a violent movie. But throughout the entire movie, The Rock's character won't touch a gun. He won't pick up a gun, and Sean Thomas Scott says to him, "Why won't you pick up a gun? Do they make you bang bang crazy?" And he says, "No, I came from a very bad place, and I know what happens with guns, and so it's my principle never to touch a gun." And so they go through this entire movie with this premise of he will never touch a gun.
And for the payoff, he picks up a gun and shows you what he can do.
Right, and in the end, he picks up a gun.
Yeah, that's a variation of that's Billy Jack. Billy Jack. Billy Jack spent the entire movie talking about how violence is a bad thing. And then at the end, and so the townsfolk are bullying the hippies. And at the end of the movie, he demonstrates why violence is a bad thing by beating the crap out of everybody.
And again, it's the Kenny Rogers movie, the Coward of the Calendar.
Yeah.
The same thing. And in the end, they throw their principles aside, they pick up the gun, and they kill everybody. And everybody, it's a happy ending, yay! And first of all, it's fucking lazy writing, goddammit. You set up this premise. You wrote yourself into a corner. I'm waiting to see how he solves the problem.
Well, you know what? Part of that is the producer. Right. Part of that is the producer who says we got to have violence at the end, and the producer says, "Well, no." And so and the poor script writer, he's worked it out so you don't need violence, and the producer says, "No, I need an action climax," and he'll rewrite it himself.
Right, but again, and you're absolutely correct, and of course, there's nobody in the world that knows more about writing scripts for Hollywood than you do. But again, it's a reflection of American society. The producer's right. I got to have the violence because if I don't have the violence, no Americans will watch the movie. Why does it sound like there's a carousel?
Yeah, I've been looking at my movie collection, and the more movies that have been coming out the past few years are all violent, and part of that is the Marvel and the Warner Brothers DCU is all of that is it's all about let's kick the crap out of somebody. So you spend 3/4 of the movie with the bad guys knocking down cities, and then the last power is we go after Thanatos or the Joker or whatever, and kick the crap out of them. And it's all about the action. And I had this conversation in my writing class. I said, "Can anybody remember the plot of any of those Marvel movies?"
Right.
And it's like I can remember 3 scenes maybe of the entire 22 Marvel cycle.
Right.
And the only part that is worth remembering is when the guy in the audience stands up and says to Loki, "There are always men like you."
Right. I like that one.
That's the only part worth remembering.
That's a hell of a. That's a hell of a scene. The other one that gets me, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. In the beginning of that movie, where Chris Evans' character is, he's running around the reflecting pool, and keeps coming across Anthony Mackie, and both of them are soldiers without. I mean, Captain America is a soldier out of time, but Mackie is a guy suffering from PTSD who came back from the war with lost friends, and now he's the soldier after the war, and they set that all up. And then halfway through the movie, fuck it, we don't have PTSD anymore. Let's put on a suit and go kill people. Yay! And we're off. And all of a sudden, just all of the things, they said they do that whole scene at the VA.
My experience with PTSD is
and then just,
it doesn't go away. PTSD does not go away. It's a lifetime thing. It becomes part of your identity, part of your personality. It doesn't go away. You learn to live with it.
Right. As a veteran of war myself, and I don't suffer much from PTSD. Maybe I'm older and angrier now than I used to be, and I have a lot less patience. I noticed that, But again, to me, those stories, and you and I have had this conversation as we've discussed various projects and stuff. To me, the story is the far more interesting story is what happens to the soldier after the war.
Oh yeah,
that's me.
I was in a
and instead when they set this all up at the beginning of the Winter Soldier. Don't get me wrong, the Winter Soldier that's an excellent movie. I mean, for a comic book movie. It's great. My problem with the whole thing, I to be honest with you, I fucking despise both Marvel and DCU. I'm so sick and tired of comic books. My God, there are so many goddamn stories out there from classic golden age sci-fi to the stuff that's being written right now today, this very minute, and we just keep making Spider-Man reboots.
You know why? Because all those adolescent boys go to the movies and they will watch those movies 3 or 4 times, and that adds up. Those box office numbers.
Yeah,
those box office numbers will determine what movie gets made and what doesn't get made.
I swear to God, though, if I die and they haven't made Ringworld into a goddamn movie, I swear it. Or the War Against the Couture, for that matter. God damn it! But
I'm working on it. I will tell you this. I've given up on Hollywood. I have met too many stupid, selfish, greedy, thoughtless, and in some cases evil people in Hollywood that I'm tired of fighting. It's like I always thought that if I was a great writer, or if I could aspire to be a great writer, if I was at least good enough to be competent to turn out good stories, that I would be in demand. Yeah, I was in demand because they wanted to piss in my coffee cup. Because you show how good you are by the people you control. You show how brilliant you are by the people you put on your and then you piss on them. And Gene Roddenberry was very good at that. He was one, and he could talk the talk. He couldn't walk the walk, and you wanted to work for him because he talked the talk. But then he would piss on you, and he wouldn't give you credit, and you turn in something that you thought was brilliant, and he'd piss it away. He'd say, "Oh, this is great. Let's add God to it."
Right.
And it's like, oh,
but you also have to remember that Gene was a Navy officer from World War II, and every time you tell me stories about him, I'm like, oh yeah, every wardroom meeting, man.
Yeah. You had Gene and Bob Justman and a couple others who were World War II veterans, and it colored their thinking. And the fact that they were able to do a show that was about let's get along with each other, part of that was they didn't have the budget to go to war.
Right. But the problem was the thing was with Star Trek, it's always about exploration. It's probably more about exploration and let's get along with each other more than any other major sci-fi series has ever been. But half of those cases, they solve their problems by firing photon torpedoes, and I know they made a real effort.
And after Gene died and the show passed into the hands of other people, what happened is, to a great extent, I'm going to put my mark on this show. I'm going to show us as great as Gene Roddenberry. I'm going to be better. and you get god awful. You know, all you have to do is look at how the fans are reacting. The fans don't want you to reinvent Star Trek. They
Right.
want to boldly go where no one has gone before, to seek out new life and new
Right.
civilization.
Right.
And
Right.
all these shows have been, let's do the Klingons again, and let's do this one, and let's do that one. And it's like, it's literary incest. It's, let's go back and do more of the same old shit, because there's no imagination of what if we met people who were different in this way? What would that teach us about? Now, they did some of that on Next Gen. There were some writers who were able to sneak some good stories in. Melinda Snodgrass.
Yeah, Melissa Snodgrass. I mean, her stuff is, I mean, Measure of Man is still probably one of the
Absolutely,
finest episodes ever written.
but I mean, I'll give you an example, and this will tell you, it speaks volumes. In the original Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry said, hire science fiction writers, they know the stories we have to tell. We got to Next Gen, and he was telling, don't hire science fiction writers, they think they know more about our show than we do. Well, the fact of the matter is, Gene didn't even know his show.
Right. Yep. Hey, we know what time it is, Bob, and I'm watching it scroll across the screen. Smart. You're the one that usually keeps us going. God damn it.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that?
Well, Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear you, Bob. So we'll just shut up and let you.
Well, I know you can't hear me, David.
All right, it's past our hour, so we should. I haven't fed the dog yet, so we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Let me say thank you.
Well,
thank you for everybody who has checked in. I think the strongest thing that we all have working for us for the next few years, however long it takes, is our sense of community. As long as we can connect, as long as we can be a community,
yep,
we have hope. And Jim will tell me I'm wrong, but I think that as long.
No, I agree with you. The only thing that's going to get us through this is each other. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, Bob, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, well, I didn't know Dave was just yanking my chain.
It's time to buy a new mic, Bob. So, all right.
No, Dave's got to get going. But I assume you want to spend a couple minutes talking about this book we got coming out. Right?
Yeah, if you can't do it loud enough, I will say Alternate Liberties, what I have seen of it and what other people have seen of it, may be your best book yet and your most important. And so, people, if you haven't had a chance to go to Amazon and order a copy of Alternate Liberties, please do so, and because it's just a terrific collection.
Or order Southern Truce while you're at it too, because that book has some great stuff in it, and it kind of came out at a bad time, and it kind of got it didn't get the sales that it should have got, and there's really some great stuff in there. But Alternative Liberties it's probably the best thing we've all done, and that's on Bob and his team. And there's some really, really great writers in this. I'm flattered to be in it with the people that are in this book, and it's absolutely amazing. And so
I don't have.
We'd ask you definitely to do this.
I don't have a very big story in it, but it turned out to be one of the sweetest stories I've ever written, which makes for a nice punchline to the entire collection.
It does. So, that's why we put. We confused people when we put a story named afterward as the last
I'm not hearing
story.
You very loud, Bob.
Yeah. But I want to make.
But we have talked up the books for you.
Yeah. I wanted to make a call out.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. People telling me that they're going to hear me. I just want to make a call out. There's one story in this book by Adam Troy Castro that the number of people whom I've had tell me that it is possibly the most terrifying story they've ever read is heartwarming. And it made Adam very happy. But I appreciate what you all have to say. This was a joint effort with some great editors, and I'll give them a call out too. Karen Anderson, as well as Cliff Winnig, and both Irene Radford, and my brain is going dead on me. And Lou Berger, a good editor. So thank you guys for being in it. And I will tell you what, I just like the idea. My first story I ever sold was I was in a book with Harry Turtledove. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever happened to me. Well, now I get to put David Gerrold and Jim Wright in a book with Harry Turtledove, and I hope you guys feel the same way.
Well, there's a lot of people in this. It's not just Harry. I mean, there's Brenda Cooper, who everybody knows. I'm a huge fan of Brenda Cooper, so for me to be in a book with her is pretty amazing. And there's a bunch of people in here that are great. One of the things I would say, and I don't know if Bob was getting to it or not, but I'll say it. I know there are a number of people in my audience that are reluctant to buy the book because it comes through Amazon, and we all know how we feel about Jeff Bezos these days and Amazon. But there's not a lot of options for small publishers, and this is the primary route for it. But to assuage our guilt, Bob agreed to this in the contract, and our residuals from these sales, the more of these books you buy, we are all paid up front by Bob, very well. But all the residuals that come afterwards, after the book's paid off, those Bob donates all of those to the ACLU with our backing, as writers' backing. And so we over the years, these books have generated a hell of a lot of money for the ACLU. So that should help to offset any feelings you have about buying a book from Amazon. So we just say that up front.
And
Buy the book.
let me add
All
to
right,
that.
it's time for me to get back to work here on my other things. So I will see you all next month, assuming we're all still here. I will see you next month.
They're not coming for you. But back on the ACLU, the writers in this book have already donated almost $1,000 to the ACLU, and and enough have donated their royalties that when this book sells, the ACLU's royalties account for more than the publisher's royalties or any individual author. So when you buy this book, you're supporting the ACLU as well. And that said,
right. So, yeah.
Jim, you have anything else you want to add before I turn off the stream?
No, I think we've all reached the